Coming up this week on Success Won't Come Calling.
To accept that, like, not just the people who know me, but complete strangers care for me. It does give you faith in humanity, doesn't it? You know, it's like a big thing to say, but I used to hate the world. I used to hate people in the world and think, what's the point? But from what I can honestly say, and I've been through some bad things, there's no amount of bad, no amount of negativity that will ever outweigh the good, because the people in my life, where I'm at now, if you could say to me, we're going to make you go through all of it again, so you know what's coming, we're going to make you do it, have all things happen to you again, so you can keep what you've got now, let's do it.
Hello friends, Simon Gibson here. Welcome to SWCC. If you like the podcast, please click subscribe and you'll know the moment every one of our episode lands. I've been really looking forward to meeting Nathan Dunne today. Nathan is going to be the first Guinness, what do they call Nathan? Guinness World Book of Records?
Yeah, Guinness World Records, yeah.
You're going to be the first holder of a record. So first of all, good to see you. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's get straight into it. In just about, we're now here. We're in on the 13th of April 2022, and in just 3 weeks' time, You're going to be undertaking an event, a journey, which is going to get you into the Guinness Book of Records. So why don't you just start by telling us what that journey is?
Yeah. So I am planning to walk from John O Groats in Scotland to Land's End, down south as far as it goes, and I'm going to be doing it via a route of 1,350 miles, and it'll be a new world record. So there's a current world record as it stands, which was set in 2016, which is 1,295 miles. So I'll be beating that by about 60 miles. That was done in 104 days. My plan is to do a marathon every day for 52 days, and that'll get me to Land's End for around June the 22nd. So yeah, I'm going to be doing the whole thing barefoot, no shoes, no footwear of any kind. I'm not allowed to wear plasters. I'm not allowed to wear bandages. It's just got to be barefoot the whole way. So that's what I'm doing, and it'll be the new world record, and it'll be the longest barefoot journey in history, from what I'm aware. I don't know of any other recorded ones that are longer than this. So,
well, when I was, first of all, we'll get into all of this, but when I was just walking up the stairs to the studio, I saw you stood there, and I almost said, "Are you Nathan?" But then I saw you had no shoes and socks on, so I thought, well, he probably is. It would be too much of a coincidence to arrive at the studio to someone else with no shoes and socks on. So, listen, just stand up for a minute. And just let's make sure we can prove that you were genuinely without.
There we go. This one here.
There it is.
They look tough feet, them. If it's possible to have builders' feet, that's what they are. Yeah. Well, let's take it from the top then. Let's talk about the actual expedition first of all. So you started John O Groats, which obviously is the most northern tip of the United Kingdom, right down to Land's End, the most southern tip. What did you say the mileage was?
So it's 1,350 miles. So the route from John O Groats to Land's End, I think it's like 890 miles direct. Then there's quite a famous cycle route that people commonly do. I think it's called the Le Jog, which is about 1,200 miles. So I don't know whether I'm sticking to that route of the Le Jog. I haven't even looked at it. I've kind of made my own route. But yeah, it's going to be 1,350 miles, which is a number that I just came up with. Obviously, when we go through the story of how I came up with the challenge, I'll talk more about that. But I just came up with 1,350. It was more than what the record was. And funnily enough, it was like only the other week I had to submit a pre-approved route for Guinness World Records. So they look at it and go, yeah, that's acceptable for the route taken. And it was really, really strange that I'd never actually put all of the legs of the route together and added them up. I knew we had to do 1,350 miles, but I'd never added them up mathematically. And putting them in the calculator and thinking it might be less, it might be a lot more. I don't know what it's going to add up to. And it added up to 1,356. And I was like, that I came up with that number at random months ago, and now all this time later, when I've actually confirmed my route, it's worked out at 6 miles more, but so close to that number. Like, so it was like such a strange, like, a sign. I felt like it was a bit of a sign. Like I've had a few little signs now where I'm like, I'm meant to be doing this. You know, I'm meant to do that amount of miles because I couldn't have known that was going to add to that. So,
and you're doing the walk in aid of Mind, which is the UK's, as I understand it, leading mental health charity.
Yeah.
At the bottom of the page, whatever platform you're watching or listening on, guys, there will be a link to Nathan's Just Giving page. Mind is a terrific cause, and they do fantastic work. And if anyone can spare some investment for what you're doing here and to support you in your journey, I know that you and Mind we're really grateful for that. So it's the bottom of our page, guys, wherever you're viewing or listening. So you mentioned some signs there in terms of the journey, but so I guess this is a good point to sort of set the scene in terms of where all this has come from. So why walking? Why Barefoot? Why Mind?
So I suppose the best point to start at is like an incident that happened, and then obviously maybe we can talk about how that incident occurred.
Of course.
But an incident that happened for me, a big turning point in my life, was last year. So only 6 months ago, I was sitting at home and watching TV, normal. It was another one of my down days that I get all the time, that I was getting all the time. And the next thing I don't know how I got there. The next thing I was standing on a bridge, and all I could hear was myself breathing really heavy, and I was like shaking, didn't know how I got there. And I don't know, time seemed to, like, there was no time. I don't know how long I was standing there for. It could have been 10 seconds, it could have been 10 minutes, but I don't know why I did, but I reached into my pocket and I didn't have my phone, didn't have my keys, and I had a coin, 10p coin in my pocket, and I took the coin out and looked at it and said, like, out loud while I was standing there, if I'm meant to be here, let's find out. And I've said heads, I'm gone, and tails, I won't. And I flipped the coin and it landed on tails, and I got down, and then I had this like sudden rush of adrenaline, and I was like, it's weird because I was just standing there, but in my mind I'd almost just died. So it was this weird like rush of like I've had it before, you know, when you do something, like I've been climbing, or you have like experiences where like, oh, I could have just died then, like quite like it was like that, but a lot more intense. And I went home, and all the way home I was like crying my eyes out. Got home and had to like sort myself out and went in the house, and I was that ashamed and embarrassed, and like I felt like I'd failed at, like, I've always been trying to fight this. I've always had these feelings and thoughts of like not wanting to be here, and finally it wasn't even there was no option for me to fight it, which was the scariest thing, because usually I'd wake up and feel like this and think these thoughts, but I'd talk to myself and I'd be like, no, or I'd maybe eventually open up a little bit to close people, and they'd go, no, you know, things will be okay, and get through it, survive. And this was the first occasion in my life where I didn't have that battle. There was no battle. I was sitting at home, and then I was on a bridge, and that's what scared me the most. So when I got home, I didn't want to tell anyone. I couldn't tell anyone. I was like, I'm that embarrassed of myself and that ashamed. How can I tell the people that like I love and that love me? How can I tell them that it doesn't matter how you feel or about me or how I feel about you? I was just about to do this. And it took me a few days to I knew I needed help. I knew that for the first time. I tried to speak to a counsellor in the past, but I was never fully committed to doing it. It wasn't the time for me to get better. But at this point, because like I say, there was that loss of control, I knew that I needed help. So I spoke to a friend, because I spoke to friends and family, and eventually said, this is what happened the other night, and I'm doing something about it. I'm gonna go and speak to someone. And I started speaking to a counsellor every Friday. And from there, I went into the counsellor the first time I spoke to him, and it was actually some advice from a friend who'd put me in touch with the counsellor. He said that when he'd went to the counsellor, the same counsellor, he went in and just laid it all on him. He said, "I'm gonna go in, say everything that's ever happened to you that you've never told people, everything, and then walk out. Don't want anything from you. Don't want you to counsel me. Here's all my baggage. See ya. If I see you next time, I'll see you." And I went in and did that. Told him everything that had ever happened to me. Just summarised it. Bang, 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 bang. Everything. And I was like, "Thanks," and then left. And I didn't know whether I was going back again. Might have went to someone else, but I knew once I got it off my chest, it was just like, I always explained it like I was carrying a rucksack around me, and there was just bricks getting thrown in that rucksack all my life. And then it got to the point where I couldn't carry that rucksack anymore. And when I went in and offloaded everything, it was like someone came along, undid the bag, took one brick out, zipped it back up and went, "Bit lighter that for you, isn't it? Carry on." And that made me go back. And then once I went back, we started to actually got counselling, and like he gave me coping mechanisms and how to deal with these feelings that I was having, because they're not just going to go away. They may never go away, but I, over the weeks and months, learned how to cope better. And I still get down days now, but it's how I deal with them now. And yeah, so the walk, where the walk came from within that space of me being at the bridge and me going to a counsellor, was I knew I needed to get help, so professional help, but that's not going to be instant. I knew it would be like a week or 2 weeks before I could see someone. I actually went to the doctor, speak to the doctors, and this is another thing that I think is a massive issue in the country. 15 weeks, I got told, before I'd even speak to someone. Once you do speak to someone, that's the person you've got. So like with counselling and therapy, you may not like have a connection, or you may not, want to open up to that particular person. It might take a couple of different counsellors for you to get the right person and go, yeah, I feel comfortable enough with this person to open up. Within the NHS, it was kind of like 15 weeks, and then that's the person you're getting, like it or lump it. And I was like, I was on a bridge last night and you're telling me 15 weeks. And they're like, well, you're okay now. Do you feel suicidal? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm okay now. But that's not the point, is it? And so I actually had to go private, which I was very, very fortunate enough to be able to afford that. Even one a week, it was 50 quid a week, £200 a month. It's a lot of money. And so I was doing that and just paying for it because I know I needed it. So yeah, I knew I needed help for professionally, but I also knew the next day I needed to do something to make myself feel better and just clear my head. So I got up the next morning, I went out and went for a walk, and I was like, I've always known this, we all know this, that when you go outside and you go for a walk, you feel better. It can be raining, it can be sunny, it doesn't matter, you feel better. And I got in and I was just sitting there thinking, and the night before I hadn't taken it in, but the next day I was thinking about the documentary that was on the TV randomly. This is one of the signs of like that kind of directed me towards this. So I was thinking about this documentary. It was about this baby cheetah that had been abandoned by its mum, and it had been taken into captivity, raised how they think it should be raised, tried to be rewilded, and then it didn't survive and it couldn't hunt, it couldn't live. So they took it back and said, that's it, it's going to have to stay in captivity for the rest of its life. So I had this documentary in my mind about this, something that was an animal in its own habitat was taken away from it. It's so far away from its own environment, and when they tried to put it back, it nearly died. And it made me think, are we becoming like that? Are we becoming so far away from what it is to be just healthy, happy human beings, to do things simply and to live in a way which like is meant the way we're meant to live, that if we were reintroduced to that way of living, would we struggle? Would we die? Look at me, I'm nearly dying. I'm standing on a bridge, So that was one thing that was running in my mind. And then I had the fact that I went for a walk that morning and I felt better instantly. And then the third thing was, and this is like, people may not believe me, people might, but I kept seeing this like image of a beach. And I just think, I've seen the beach somewhere before. I don't know where it is, I've seen it. And took a couple of days for me to go, oh, I know where that beach is. It's down south at Land's End. I've never been there, but I wanted to go there because I've always wanted to do John O Groats to Land's End. So I went online, Googled walk from John O Groats to Land's End, and then the record came up, and I was like, that's what I need to do. And I just said it. I'm going to break that record. That's what I need to do. I need to do that walk. And so with those three things, that getting outside and walking, the rewilding, getting more back to being human, and the fact that I had this vision of myself walking onto a beach and it being the beginning of something. You know, I don't refer to the walk. People keep saying, oh, when you start to finish or start to the end, and I go, no, start to beginning. They go, or I've emailed it or I've texted it, and people go, oh, you've done that wrong there. You know, you've put. It's like, no, start to beginning, because when I get there, that's the beginning of a new path for me. So that's how I came up with the walk. And then, like I say, I just randomly plucked the number, 1,350 miles. And then it was about a week after I'd come up with this, like, I said it to one of my mates, I said, what do you think about this? This is this for an idea? And then a week or two later, after, in my head, I knew I was doing it, but I was like a bit nervous about telling people I was going to do it. A couple of weeks later, I was like, oh, that's actually quite hard to do. I was like, but I've said I'm going to do it now, and all my life I feel like I've failed. I feel like I've tried to do things and not succeeded. I've some things that are completely delusional. I used to believe that, like, I failed at being a child, a normal child, because of the way I was, because of what happened to me. Some things were like, I joined the Marines when I was 16, and I left at like week 26, 27. So like that is an actual failure for me. So all these avenues in my life, I felt like I've failed. And with this, when I thought of it, I instantly felt a bit of peace. I felt like I've already done it in my mind. It's just my body's got to do it now. So I've had people obviously asking, do you think you're going to be able to do it? I've had people, even you can tell that they think you're not going to be able to do that. 26 mile every day, you're not going to be able to do it. But I've got a peace that I've never had, because I know that I can. I know that in my mind I'm going to do it. I've done it in my mind.
I mean, I hate to stop you because it's such a engaging story, but I just wanted to say, first of all, man, I mean, I'm so sorry that you'd reached that situation where you were confronted with that level of sadness that you were contemplating ending your life, and I'm so sad that happened to you. And to respond the way you have is to your great credit. Let's just walk through what you've just told us. First of all, let's just get some context. You mentioned being sat at home, and then you sort of regained your consciousness, as it were.
Yeah.
When you were stood on the bridge, where was the bridge? What was the bridge?
Just round the corner from where I live. It was a railway bridge. So, you know, it's not like, I don't even know how I got there. So I don't know, you know, what choices were made, but I think it was just the closest point of where it was quiet and there was no one around, and it was dark at night. And literally the next road to my house, where I live, there's up a hill, and then on the hill there's a bridge. You don't even know it's a bridge because it's like the walls are dead high.
I know what you mean. It's kind of it's a railway tunnel basically, isn't it, where the train goes through, and
so you don't
the
know,
tracks at the bottom. Yeah.
So like if you're walking along, sometimes you might not even know that's a bridge, but if you get up on it, then you can see obviously that it's very high up, and so like I said, I don't know how I ended up there, and I still don't know how I ended up there.
And stop me if you don't want to talk about any of this, but in terms of your challenge in terms of mental health, mental well-being.
Yeah.
How old are you now, mate? If you don't mind me asking.
28.
28.
Yeah.
So when was it in your life that you first began to experience problems with mental well-being?
So the first time I can ever remember not wanting to, it's difficult because it goes back to so young of an age where you don't remember much as like a child, and then the things that I do remember as I was starting to get older was the time it kind of like, it feels like it's always been there. It feels like everywhere I go there's a cloud over me, and you know, white is always grey. It's never been white for me. So you kind of become adapted to that way of living. Like everything's always not good. But the first time I remember ever having the thought of questioning life was, I must have been around 6 or 7. I remember being on Christmas Day, and I woke up and I lied in bed, and I thought to myself, I don't want to get out of bed. There's nothing downstairs for me. There's no presents for me. There's no couch. There's no, and when I say my bed, so basically, yeah, it was a really bad circumstance I was living in. And
were you living with your parents at this point?
With my mum, who was addicted to drugs. My dad was in jail for pretty much most of my life. I didn't really know him. He died in jail. So it was with my mum and whichever stepdad was on the scene at the time. But that was the first occasion where I remember, because it was Christmas Day as well. It was like, I think I was like, what's the point in being alive? What's the point in? I couldn't understand it as a kid. But children, I think, are great because they have this survival. It's like, I think that's a human instinct to survive. And then that's why a lot of mental health problems come out when you're an adult, not when you're a child, because it's just like, one of the things I said to myself over and over again over the years was, just make it to be an adult. Make it to be an adult. And then you can look after yourself, you can feed yourself, you can make sure you're not going to get hurt or nothing's going to happen to you once you become an adult. Just get there. So everything else in life then was just a survival. So that was the first time I felt that like darkness, that like, what's the point in being here anymore? And I suffered a lot as a child. There was a lot of abuse, physically and mentally, and then, and I went to foster care. And
so how long were you with your mum in that situation? What age were you in foster care?
I think I was living with my mum till about 8 or 9. It's sometimes one of the tricky things is, because the memories that I've got are so, like, some of them are so difficult for me, you question whether they're even real. Did that even happen to me? Could it have been that? Like, because it's so, like, unthinkable of the stuff that goes on, that, like, you think stuff that surely can't have happened to me. I'm just this normal person and here now, but when I look back, it's like been so much. And yeah, I went into foster care, and foster care was a mad experience, because I went to this woman, and I still have contact with this woman, and she was amazing.
And this was just in a normal home, was it? Just a normal house?
Yeah, a normal house. So I went to this woman called Debbie, and she was amazing. Best foster care I've ever met. And I've met some other good ones as well, I don't say they're all bad, but I went in and she was like, what do you want to eat? This like older woman, opened the fridge, and she was like, do you want some sausages? And I was like, yeah. Do you want some? And then before I knew it was just ingredients after ingredient, and I had like a full English, and I was like, wow. And I just ate all this food, and it was amazing. But she was a short-term foster carer. So I was staying with her until they found me a more permanent place. And after I left there, I just must have been unlucky, because for me, not to the same level, but I still was experiencing some very, very bad things happening to me. And some of that was related to where I was living, in which place I was living. And some of that was relating to not even to do with the foster care, but like random kids who lived near, who were like bullying me, and some of the things they did to me as well. And so it was just like, how unlucky can I was like, this has happened, and it just kept going. So therefore I never had the chance to stop that survival mode. It was just survive.
How does it work in the foster care system? You went to this lovely lady first.
Yeah.
Why was she a temporary place for you? Why couldn't you have just stayed there?
I'm not too sure. You have short-term foster carers, and you have long-term foster carers.
So it must be when someone's in a situation which the authorities just want to get them out of.
Get them out straight away, somewhere to go.
And someone they've got confidence in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so I asked, can I stay here? I want to stay here. And it was like, no. So...
what was, if you don't mind me asking, what was the situation when you were with your mum? What was the tipping point in terms of something happened which made the authorities intervene?
I don't quite know, but it was just your typical, she was addicted to drugs. So drugs came first. It wasn't just me. There was me, my brother, my sister, another brother, possibly like just as, I'm not going to say as they do to label them, but they keep having kids, people like this who are like addicted to drugs, and obviously they shouldn't be having any kids when they're addicted. You shouldn't be having any. So the priority in their life is drugs. They're addicted to it. You know, when I take a step back and remove myself, which I can do now because I don't have any feelings towards my family because I don't see them as family. I've never been with them. But when I remove myself from and step back, I can see why when an addiction like that, you know, that's all you think about every day. That's all you're living for. Then kids, how are you going to look after kids? And so there was lots of bad ways, and I'm not even sure how social services became involved. You know, and
were you going to school and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we were in primary school. I was in primary school, and I've got memories of primary school. Not many, but yeah, we were in primary school. They must have been aware, I think, of the situation.
Something happened. There was
worse.
A trigger point.
Yeah, it got worse. So I do remember like it went from like being like we had things in the house to then it was like things were disappearing, and then it got worse and worse and worse. Where like, you know, like there was always food, then there was not as much, then it's worse, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And I think that was what led to the point of, you know, there's something wrong in this home. The social services look into it, and then they're like, oh yeah, there is really something bad going on. You know, you can't blame social services because they're not telepaths. They can only become aware of a situation when they become aware of it. And if really bad stuff has happened previous to that, what can they do about that? They didn't know.
What sort of drugs was your mum taking?
Heroin, I think. Heroin, and I think that was it. The main one.
Well, I mean, obviously heroin is a highly addictive drug, and to go through that in terms of what you must have seen. Again, I'm just so sorry this has happened to you, and it's wonderful that we're sat here today with you making these such rational observations about your mum, about social services. It's a joy to hear someone talking so rationally, having been through what you have, mate.
Yeah, I think previous to the 6 months ago, I had a lot more hate and a lot more anger, a lot more emotion directed towards all that, like blaming different things and different people, and that's all in the past. And if you continue to live and do that, you're living in that past, because I'm constantly blaming and excusing and thinking about behind me. Where when I accepted it and forgave it, which is it's a really difficult thing to say. I forgive the people who've done what they've done to me, but it's not for them.
It's for you.
It's for me. So once I did that, it was like it was looking at the future and living in the day, every day. And it has helped me be able to speak about it, because I didn't speak about any of this for 7 years.
And this is that recent that you turned this corner and that you were able to close the door on the past.
Yeah.
I mean, that's remarkable, because I mean, the way you talk about this is so clear and so positive. Well, it's so progressive. Like you say, you're looking forward. There's an element of reflection, but you're not allowing that to get in your way.
No.
I mean, how have you mentioned getting some treatment? Is this a cognitive behavioural therapist?
No, so it wasn't CBT, it was counselling.
Got you.
Because he did mention in one of the sessions, he went CBT. So when he referred to it in that way, I was like, oh, so this isn't CBT, because I don't know what's what. So this must be just counselling or some other form of it. But one of the things that really, really helped me was there was about 4 occasions in my life which I classed as the worst things that ever happened to me. So like pinnacles of suffering. That's what I used to think.
Do you mind sharing with us what they were? You don't have to, man.
Yeah, no. That's probably the most difficult, as in those pinnacles of things.
Well, move on.
Yeah, this is what really helped me, was in between those pinnacles of the worst things that happened to me, there were many, many, many other things that were happening that I didn't think were bad because of how bad my life was. And it was then when I started to tell the stories of those things that the counselor was like, that's terrible. Why don't you think that's terrible? And then once he made me aware of that, I actually went, you're right. And one of the most significant things that he said to me that made me, that helped me so much was he said, there's going to be a child in here, 7-year-old child. And when you come in, and our next session is going to be a 7-year-old child, I want you to imagine this, and he's going to be sitting there and he's going to be going through everything that you were going through when you were 7 years of age, all of the pain, all that suffering. And I want you to think while you're away for this next week and when you come back, what would you say to him and what would you do if he was there? And when I came back the next week, it was
take your time, man. Do you want?
Yeah, I'm good.
Have a little break. If you want to move on and come back,
it's good. It's good.
You sure?
Yeah, it's good. It's like, this is good. This is, again, this is something that I used to think this is bad. I can't do this, but I can because I can walk around with no shoes on and don't care anymore.
And do you know what the other thing is, mate? Life's too difficult to walk through alone.
Yeah.
So sharing, talking, and as human beings, being able to exchange our respective experiences, but also show empathy for one another.
Yeah.
That's what makes human beings special.
It is,
and that's why I'm such a believer in talking, and it's also why I'm such a believer that sharing experiences of challenge and struggle is so inspirational for others. So, I mean, where I am is I'm so thrilled that you are able to talk about this, but don't feel compelled to talk about any of it.
No, I want to. You know, I want to. This is helping me get better. I'm not fixed. I'm not better. You know, I think that's why a lot of people have messaged me and can relate to it, because I'm not doing this challenge after you know, it's years later after I've feel like I'm in the best place, and then I'm going, I used to have this problem. Right now I know there's going to be days when I'm on this walk where I'm going to be not wanting to get out my tent and move, and I've had it when I'm training, I'm walking down the prom. Next thing, I'm happy. The next thing, I'm angry. Next thing, I'm crying my eyes out walking down the middle of you know, where I live, and people are looking at me like, why is he just crying his eyes out? You know, I know that it's not sorted, but it's gonna be, and that's the outlook that I never used to have. The outlook I used to have is it's never going to be okay.
And the way you've tackled it through accepting help, but also through moving forward and finding a way to at least partially shut the door on the past and fully in due course. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's about the credit that you do for that, and the admiration I've got for you. I know that everyone listening and watching will have is something to really be proud of, because the ability to keep moving forward and to overcome adversity is hard for anyone. But bearing in mind this circumstance that you've described, where you weren't even really recognizing that things that I would find traumatic and devastating, you were almost brushing them off because they were, in comparison, they weren't the most challenging times you'd faced. Yeah. I mean, that's quite remarkable, mate. It really is.
So to finish what I was saying about that, what was significant about the counselling session, that one session, was he asked me, how would I treat that child? What would you say to him? And I thought about it, and I'd come in and say, what would I say to him? What would I do? And I'd go up to him, I'd give him a hug, and I'd say, it's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. You know, I'd probably say, I'm going to protect you. I'm going to look after you now. And then this was the sentence that got me. He went, your trauma that you've suffered is as a child. So it's not as a 28-year-old, it's as a child, and that's inside you. Why aren't you telling yourself that it's okay? Why aren't you hugging yourself? Why aren't you showing yourself the same love and care that you would show that 7-year-old boy sitting there? And that hit me hard, because I was like, I don't. All I ever do is treat myself terribly all the time. I say negative things to myself all the time. I put myself down. I feel worthless, and there's an opportunity for me to change that by the way I'm treating myself, and I need to go back to that 7-year-old child and help him. And when the moment I started doing that, and started treating myself like that way, things became a lot easier each day. Because I'd struggle with silly things, you know. If I was supposed to be meeting you here at 2:00 and it was 2:01, I'd drive home, and I'd be like, oh, Simon really mustn't like me. He must not like me. Have I said something? But have I done something wrong? Get on my phone, go through every message I've ever sent you since I've known you. Maybe he's took, you know, go through email. I'd be very, very scared of what people thought of me. And so there's loads of like weird problems that I had, which are all stemming from obviously my life, that, you know, the way I've dealt with it, the way your body decides to deal with, to cope. But yeah, so that made me treat myself differently, and that was like a first step into helping me cope with what was going on. Yeah, and then the next thing, like I say, was those tackling not the peaks of the stories, because even with my counsellor, other than the first day when I told him everything, I've not spoke about those few things, but we spoke about every other in between things, of memories that I had when I was a child that weren't acceptable, even though I thought they were, like you were saying before. You know, like, for example, one time, I used to pretty much sleep under the stairs with this dog we had. Love this dog, amazing, my best friend. And it's weird, how can you have a dog when you're in that situation? But we did, a little mongrel dog. And I remember I became very silent, never used to speak, stopped speaking, became very, very quiet. I almost started living like this dog, sleeping with her, cuddling up with her. You know, even when I'd go upstairs, I'd come down when it was dark and go and cuddle up with the dog, because it was warm as well, you know, cuddling up something was warm. I remember it pooed in the kitchen one day, which is...
I've got a dog, mate, and he poos absolutely everywhere.
Yeah,
seriously, on me, all over the house. So I'm well familiar with the behaviour.
So this guy who's with my mum comes in and starts beating the dog, like it's howling, you know, like he's battering the dog. And then first time in my life that I shown a bit of fight, and I jumped on his. And I always remember I jumped on his leg and started biting his leg.
How old were you then?
7.
Right.
And I can remember myself like growling like a dog. It was a weird experience. I was biting his leg, and I was like, and he just kicked me off, and like I flew into the cupboard, and like that really hurt me. I remember crying my eyes out, like, but you know, you can't make any noise because you're that, like, when you're a kid. You're
of
like,
course, oh, absolutely.
And then he threw me and the dog in the garden. And I remember this day because it was raining in this little courtyard garden. And the dog was just there, lying there, like yelping. And I just cuddled up to the dog outside in the rain, and he just left us out there. That was it. And then...
Was this before foster care?
Yeah. So that to me was like one example. There was loads of completely different situations, loads of things like that I never saw as being bad and never addressed. So therefore I thought I never need to address those things. It's only these 4 big things I need to address, when really... there's a lot more you need to address before I can tackle the bigger things. So he made me realise that none of that is okay. None of all the things, you know, not even, they're severe things, you know. I wouldn't even, I don't know, I wouldn't, if I had a child, how would I treat that child? You know, you'd love them and care for them as best you could. You wouldn't do things like that. So yeah, it just made me realise that I deserved more. And I do deserve more now, as an adult, as someone who can look after themselves. So I had all that happening till I was in foster care. When I got older, to teenage level in foster care, I was being bullied in school horrendously, bullied outside of school. If it wasn't as bad outside the school as it was, if it wasn't worse as it was outside school compared to in school, then, you know, I wouldn't have went to school. But going to school was actually the easier option for me, because I'd get, you know, a chance to escape home life. So this was in high school.
And this is when you were in foster care?
This is when I was in foster care, yeah. So I then joined the gym, and before I joined the gym, I used to run away from foster care placements. So I started becoming naughty. The way I would get out of things in school and in foster care was, if I'm dead naughty, they'll move me. home, foster care, or they'll expel me from school, or put me in the tent, like a room where like there's a teacher sitting there, and just two of yous, which for me was like no one can do anything to you in here. So I started doing that as a way of like defense, and what then happened was I'd run away from foster care and go and sleep in the woods by, you know, where I lived or wherever it was, and I kept getting found by police. Eventually they catch me. So I started going further afield, and I went to Betsy Coed, randomly got on a train and went as far as I could, got to bed. I didn't know what it was called. And
where's that?
In Wales.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So this was when I was like 13, 13, around that age.
And how far was that away from your house?
From the Wirral, it's like 50.
Yeah, it must be, mustn't it? Yeah, it's good, like good distance.
And then I used to go off up into the hills. I'd have my little bag that whatever bag I could get, and I had like tins of food that I'd been saving from like robbing from foster carers' cupboards or whatever. I'd just go off into the hill, and there's this abandoned farm there, it's still there now, and I'd stay there as long as I could. Once I was no food left, pretty much like struggling to live, I'd come back down, go to the train station, get caught by the ticket conductor. He'd be like, "Who are you? You're a kid." Ring the police. They'd take me back, move foster carer.
And how many times did you move foster carer during that period when you were in high school?
Quite a few. I can't remember really how many. I felt like I was just constantly on the move, because either one, I wouldn't want to be where I was if it was this particular place, and then two, when I got to a decent place, I was already being really naughty. It was like in me then. So like then they'd be like, "Well, we're trying to give you a chance here, but we can't deal with you being the way you are."
And what was the cause of you running away? Was it the situation in the foster home, or was it the situation outside of it in terms of this bullying issue at school and outside school?
Yeah, 1 year. I think this is where it's come. I'm trying to identify these things myself. I think it comes from 1 year. Now this is where bullying, like, I've had some of these people message me like nothing's ever happened since who bullied me when I was a teenager. I'm thinking of coming down the gym, and I'm like, okay, mate, yeah, definitely come down the gym. I'd like to think that through martial arts and the lessons I've learned, as much as I'd want to absolutely destroy them on the mat, I'd have the discipline and the restraint to be like, that's not the right thing to do. And if they come into the gym, I treat them like everyone else. But they were bullying me very badly. And 1 year I got the thing, this was the beats it was called. And I was the person in the year that if you saw a person, you beat them up. That was it, all year. And what I got very good at was hiding around the school. So I'd move through the school and you wouldn't even know I was there. Being perfectly on time, not on time to certain places and areas, and knowing where people were going and what they were doing. Because not every single person in the year was going to beat me up, but these group of lads were. And it became easier, because I remember before I went into care, I used to have quite a few fights like where we'd live, because we were the druggies kids, so we get picked on. And I used to be out with me and my brother. I used to fight back, and that stopped when I got to school, because it was just like overwhelming. How can I fight back? So I started hiding and then running away and manoeuvring myself. So I think that's where it came from. I just always get the urge, I even get it now, rather than like attack conflict head on, I'll run away from it.
What? Because obviously you moved then, you mentioned joining the gym, and I know you then had a successful period competing in martial arts. Now, I'm by no means a gifted martial artist. I've done some Muay Thai. Both my daughters are really into boxing and Muay Thai. We're in a fantastic gym. But that word discipline you used, the very limited amount of experience I have in this field of MMA, is that discipline and mindset is key.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your first decision to join the gym and what happened then in terms of your career.
Yeah, so I had that period of like running away and stuff for a couple of years, and that actually, before I say about the gym stuff, the first time, and this is why it's a really important place to me, I've not took anyone there except one of the closest people to me, but it's the first time where that thought of a 7-year-old not wanting to, why am I living anymore, to 12, 13-year-old, where I'd said, this time I'm not coming back. when I go to this farm, I'm not coming back. And I toyed with like, this time I'm not coming home. So that's an important place. And things happened up there.
So you were contemplating suicide at this point?
Yeah, at this point now, it was so.
It was 12, 13.
Yeah, this was the first time I remember. Now I'm actually thinking about going to end my life, and I remember this being this big beam up there, and I was like, tomorrow I'm going to go up, and I'm not coming back up the mountain, and then I remember it was a big massive storm that night, and it was already a broken down farm, abandoned farm, and when I went up the next day, it collapsed even more, and so my plans were like, well, I can't do that now. And I walked down to the river, big, massive. It's not that big, but when I was a kid, it looked massive to me, these big rapids. And I remember thinking, like, just dead casually, I'm just going to jump in there. And I don't want to go back to what's happening anymore. I don't want to do it. And again, little signs in your life. I remember I was starving and I wanted to not be here. They were the two prominent things. And when I got to the river, this guy appeared out of nowhere, looked like a homeless guy, but he must have been a hiker. Popped his head over and looked and was like, "You all right?" And I was like, looked up, didn't even get a chance to answer him, he disappeared. And then he's behind me and he gets out this pack, it's like a tinfoil pack, and I'm like, what's going on here? Opens it and he's got two massive Scotch eggs. Bites one and goes, "Do you want one?" And he gives me a Scotch egg and I'm like, straight away, yeah, start eating it. And then he walked off, didn't say a word to me. And it's weird because, like, I don't know who that person is, but after I bit into that Scotch egg, I wasn't thinking about jumping in there anymore. I was thinking, oh, this is great.
And was it because your life to that point, through no fault of your own, had been one where that kindness had been lacking? And was the fact that this guy, for no personal gain, was just able to make this very simple gesture?
Yeah.
Do you think that this might not have been the way it resonated at the time? Do you think, well, did it occur to you, this is a glint of positivity?
At the time, I was that hungry.
Survival instinct.
It was like,
yeah.
And then it took me thought process away. Like, it weren't like the bridge where I was like, I didn't know I was there, but then once I was there, I was like, I'm genuinely about to end my life. When I was there, I was like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing this. It wasn't like I'm definitely going to. And he just almost like diverted me. So like, I'd never know who that person is, but whether I would or I wouldn't have done it, I don't know. I hope that I wouldn't have done that, but the fact that he diverted me in that way without even knowing just shows you that you never know what someone's going through or what they're doing in everyday life. So whenever you meet anyone, always show love and care. You've got to, because it can be as simple as giving someone a Scotch egg, and that could change the direction of what's happening.
That is so powerful, Nathan, because I mean, I'm just thinking about that in terms of this point of you don't know what people are going through, and that you walk through your life, don't you, every day, and the majority of people you encounter, to the extent that you actually interact with them, are people you know anyway.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, you hope that you've got a good handle on what their life is like, what their experiences are, but you haven't.
No.
The people you don't know, who you encounter, you have no idea what their experience is like. And what I always try and do is I always try and treat everyone with respect, because I think as a bare minimum, for someone to know that they are respected, that they're valued as a person. Yeah. I mean, that's the absolute bare minimum we can all do. Why would you drop below that threshold? Why? When I hear people who, speak to people in the bars and restaurants badly, they speak to the homeless badly, they speak to their staff badly, they speak to customers badly. I just think, what gain is there for you when to treat someone with respect and kindness and with generosity where you've got the chance? I mean, that feels brilliant.
Yeah, it gives you. It's like selfless but not selfish. It's
correct.
Because I'm getting something from it. I'm getting to feel that. Yeah, I just bought that person a coffee, or I just said, oh, that top looks nice. I'm getting a good feeling from that. and I'm giving them a good feeling. It's an exchange of positivity, isn't it? But we all fall down. We all have had the times where you got your road rage and you're beeping at someone, and because someone just nearly killed your car off, and like they've done something completely like stupid, but you don't know what they're going through, and an emotion kicks into you, and you respond, an instant response. You beep or you shout.
Yeah.
We're not all perfect, so we all do at some point speak to someone in a bad way, insult someone, whatever it may be. But it's if for the majority of the time, for 95%, 99% of the time, we can consciously be able to treat people the way we would expect to be treated, and the way I'm expected to be treated almost now is like a child, like a with that love and care. Not like treat me like a kid, but treat someone with that amount of love and care. Adults are very harsh against each other. But if you put a kid in the room and said, and just put a camera in the room and just put a normal adult, normal child in the room, they'd probably be very, very nice. And be, "You okay? What are you doing? But do you want to play a game?" Whatever it may be, they'd probably treat that child with so much love and respect and care. And then we can't do that to grown men can't do it to each other, because it's like, I can't be shown. It's not weak.
I mean, it's you're right, and it's strange to try and work it out, isn't it? I think there's something going on there, sort of evolutionary, that men think they're competing with one another, maybe at all levels, and that's where this sort of suspicion and disrespect and combat and competition comes from. But I mean, if you think about it, we're all walking through life. We all have challenge. And it would be so much better if everyone felt respected as a minimum.
Yeah.
The whole world and society would operate better if they had that platform. But tell me then, so you sat at the river, this fantastic guy who, if he's listening or watching, reach out. Yeah. You've got your Scotch egg. What happened then?
Back to same pattern, home, or whoever that was, back to the train stop, court, then back home. And after that time, I didn't go back up there till I was older, as in like, not to run away anymore, but to like to hike, to camp. But yeah, once I got back then, I ended up going to the gym. So I end up thinking to myself, so it was actually my brother. I think we were...
And were you still in touch with your siblings at this point, were you?
Just my older brother, I think. We were in separate places, wherever he was, but I can't even remember how, but he ended up saying, "Do you want to go down to this gym to do this MMA cage fighting in there going on?" And I was like, "I want to come and watch," because I didn't really like him at this point. I want to come and watch him get beat up. So I went down there to watch, and I joined in. He left, and didn't go back. I stayed, and it was one of the, I don't know, the group of people in there where they treated me like an adult for the first time in my life, but cared for me like a child, which was quite a strange feeling. So they included me in "you're one of us," but they also had that element of, but he's still a 14-year-old kid, so we've got to look after him. And the kindness that the group of people in that gym showed me was like, I was like family straight away. This was just a random gym, and like I say, I then, because of that feeling of belonging.
Well, how did that feel?
It felt amazing. It felt like, they say the two greatest days in your life are the day you're born, the day you find out what you're supposed to do. And for the first time, I felt like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but I feel like I know where I'm supposed to be. And I was going there every day then, every single day, whether there was a class on or not, I'd just go down the gym and just be there. And it's really interesting, because I went there when I first saw what people were doing. I was like, wow. My goal was to go back into school and batter every single person who'd like was bullying me.
That's understandable.
I wanted to get revenge on them, and I've never had a fight outside the gym. So I went in there with the intention to learn how to fight, to go and fight these people. Since the age of 14, I'm 28 now, I've not had one single fight outside the gym, not one.
And how? Because as you were introducing this to me, the kind of the commencement of combat, what came to my mind was exactly that. Was that, I bet you weren't fucking getting bullied then.
Yeah.
How were you able to disconnect from that plan to inflict harm on these lads?
I think it was just purely like, I was consumed with what I was doing, and I weren't going to school anymore. I got kicked out of school. I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm doing this. This is what I'm going to do. So I had that, like I say, that feeling of belonging with these people who were treating me amazing, looking after me, and I had that desire, like, to get better at it and to learn, and it just was just like that thought process was forgotten about. I didn't think about them people ever again, and so, or not ever again, but for a long time. And then you have a new goal of, you can compete in this. You can actually go and compete.
And so how quickly did that happen? Did you start? Was it kickboxing you were doing?
So it was MMA. What I walked into, and let me get this order right, because it was MMA first with Dave Faulkner. I don't know if you know Dave Faulkner. He's MMA, like an MMA guy from Liverpool, and he got on the Ultimate Fighter. So he left the gym and went off and did his own thing and stuff like that. So I fought MMA as a kid after about a year, and I didn't really have much of anything, stand up or ground. I just got in and had a go and stuff, and it was great. And then when he left, the MMA class stopped. So the only option in the gym was the Thai boxing class. So I just then did Thai boxing for like 2 years straight, like no MMA, no jiu-jitsu, nothing like that. So I knew of it, but I didn't know how to do it. But I just was like, well, this is my only option to do, Thai boxing. And I just started fighting in Thai boxing, and had quite a lot of fights at that gym. Did well, and it was a different sport back then. Like, I won the Northwest title, won the English title, I won the British MMA title, but the skill set, and this is not like me putting myself down, the skill set back then was nowhere near what it's like now.
Right.
The kids now are on, like, who are in the gym and they've been doing it since they were 4, and they're like 15, 16, 17.
So the quality they've got technically and in terms of the fitness, yeah.
Like, put it this way, I went into my first fight, MMA fight, and I didn't really know how to do like an armbar. Whereas now kids who are competing have been doing grapple comps for years and years and years before they even get in the cage to do an MMA fight. So I did well, respectively, of what the standard was. And because there was not many kids doing it, I think there was like 4, I say kids, 15-year-olds, there was like 4 of us in the country. And we knew each other and we all fought each other. And then it was like, well, what do we do now? So then we started competing against adults and going in the adults divisions.
And how old were you then?
I was like 15, 16, going
Really?
15, 10, 16, yeah. And then it was like similar, messed up. Nowadays, there's an efficient rule set for different ages. It's clear on what you're doing. Whereas back then, it'd be like I'd have a Thai boxing fight and it'd be like professional. And then I'd be fighting another Thai boxing fight like 2 weeks later and it'd be like amateur. And then, you would never go backwards. And then the next week, it'd be like I'd be on an interclub, and then the next week I'd be fighting a different class of Thai boxing rules again, professional, but with this. And then I'd be going to do MMA, amateur, with no strikes at all. And I'd be like, this is just weird. Last week I was fighting in a ring 5 rounds with no protection on, full headshots, full everything. I'm 16. And the next week I'm doing like an amateur MMA fight where there's no strikes at all into the body. It was weird. So they brought in new rules for MMA like a couple of years later, which is amazing. Now the amateur rules for MMA is like, other than elbows and knees and the size of the gloves, it's perfect for transitioning from amateur to pro. Whereas back in the olden days, it was like amateur, semi-pro, pro. So the rule system, but again, like I say, the standard of the sport, if you were aggressive enough to come forward and just strike, you could pretty much win most fights.
So it wasn't where it is now. You had tough fighters, but not technically where it is now.
Like the night I won the Northwest title Thai boxing fight, it was just a scrap. It wasn't like a Thai boxers are amazing now. Like, it was just go.
And how old were you then when you won that title?
I think I was 16 then. But, my head's going like this, getting knocked off, and him and his head's going back, and you can just see it just like a bar fight. Who is the most aggressive person? Who's gonna land the lucky shots that not technical really. And then I went from started doing jiu-jitsu again, to try and make a career. If you like, I wanted to do a career, as in get into MMA properly.
And when did you make that decision in terms of you wanted this to be a career pathway?
It was when, like, because obviously I was winning so much.
What would you, just in terms of winning, what was the sort of pinnacle of your career in in the Thai boxing?
I think the best thing I won in Thai boxing was the English WK title, which was like many years ago. I didn't do what I wanted to do in MMA. I wanted to do a lot more, but by that point, I started to struggle mentally then. So like making weight and stuff like that, and I got this overwhelming pressure. So this is where like my struggles came in with me feeling the failing at everything, and it ties into me running away. I had an amateur boxing fight, and I lost. And it was one of the first things I've ever lost competition wise. And I'd competed in loads of things by then, and I remember going to toilets and crying my eyes off like 2 hours. I wouldn't leave the toilet, and it like hit me that I was that scared on that one night. I was that scared to lose that I never wanted to do it again, because if I don't do it, I can't lose. And I was like, that's a bad thought to have. Don't think like that. And I continued to try to compete and continue to that, and it just got worse. Every time I got told, oh, we've got you a match, it get worse and worse, to the point where I was letting me gym down and saying, oh yeah, I'll do it, and then pulling out, to the point where I was going, I've hurt my foot,
right,
faking injuries, all not normal behaviour. And then I was like, I'm going to go join the Marines, I'm going to run away, because I can go, just go. Let's just forget all that and go. And I joined the Marines. And when I joined the Marines, I did amazing in there.
And this was you joined how old were you then when you joined the Marines?
So I was 16 still now.
Right.
So I joined the Marines, left, did amazing in the Marines.
How long were you in the Marines for?
So I was only in there for 26 or 7 weeks.
Right.
I got so there's a stage where you do like final X, as it's called, and then after that it's just you got your commando test, and then you've got your pass out. And the last opportunity to leave legally, I think, is week 28 or 27, something like that. But I got down there and I was like, they give you food, as much food, loads of food. They give you clothes. I'm getting paid 1,100 quid a month at this age. When I'd not had anything in my life, I was like, this is amazing. And all I've got to do is do what you say. And I was quite a physical machine because of my training I've been doing. So I was doing great. I was section lead, not section lead. I was 2 IC, so I was second in command in my section. But these are all men, and I'm really doing well. And then that mental side started to come in again. What if I do pass out? What if I do?
So it's that fear of failure.
Yeah. Like, can I do this? Can I do it? Can I do it? Even though I'm doing it. And again, I wanted to run away. So I'd ran away from competing in martial arts to the Marines. And now I'm wanting to run away from the Marines. I want to run away. So I left there, and I've regretted that. A month later, I was like, I shouldn't have done that. So close to the end of training, I regretted it. Don't regret it anymore, because I'm here.
Well, it's just part of the experience. Yeah. It's part of the journey, isn't it?
Maybe I wouldn't have done or met or experienced the things I have. So I'm not regretting that anymore.
So tell us then what's happened, because obviously you must have only been sort of 17-ish then. You're 28 now.
So I came back from the Marines and I was like, I'm going to go back and fight. That's me calling. That's what I'm going to do. And I was just bouncing between this like repetitive circle of like fighting, doing a job, fighting, doing a job, fighting, doing a job. And I'd quit that to go back to fighting, and I couldn't do it, go back to, and so I ended up doing I was a dog handler for a bit. My best friend, who has been massively significant in my life, I met him at the gym. It's really interesting that actually with my best mate, because we came up with this, is it an analogy of
yeah.
So with my counsellor, it was like the two closest people in my life at a time where I actually demonstrated this in the counselling thing. He was like, let's do it physically. So I got up and he was like, okay, and this is how I wanted to explain it to him in physical form. And I was like, so I feel like, like you can't barely stand and you're trudging along, just barely standing up. That's what was me in life. And I feel like my best mate, he came along and went, put my arm around him. And I was like, oh, that's a bit better. Still and then,
where did you meet him? You met him in the gym?
Yeah. And then, so the two closest people to me, basically both lifted me up like this, and then they carried me along. Now, I'll never be able to there's nothing I can say that I can thank them for doing what they've done for me. But when someone carries you along, where you're not walking anymore, you're walking on their path. As amazing as they are, as loving, as caring as they are, you're not walking on your own feet. You're being carried because you need to be carried. That I needed that help, and what was really.
But you wanted the help as well, and that what I mean by that
with
is
them, I didn't even want the help, and that's why they're so amazing, because I've fought them.
Right.
I've fought them, and they've been like, no, it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, and that was very hard for me to understand. How can you care for me and love me, and all I do, or all I felt like I did, was tie you down, weigh you down. You know, if I was carrying, when I was in the Marines, and they go, oh, he's just been shot, you need to casevac him, and you're fuming that this guy's massive, they've picked the biggest guy, and you're struggling and you're fuming at that person, it's not his fault, but that's how I felt like they should feel at me. Why aren't you angry with me? Why aren't you
it's because of of what you went through, though, isn't it? It's your experience which has forced those emotions upon you, rather than them just being organic. So it's totally understandable.
Yeah.
To what extent did the fact they were prepared to do it make you able to deal with that?
So I never, up until recently, I've never almost appreciated that. I always just thought, why do you bother with me? I'm tying you down. I'm making, and this, I can see, it's delusional. I can see how, when it comes to suicide, people go, I'm not good enough for these people. In fact, it's not, I'm not only not good enough, but I'm making their life worse. In fact, I'm weighing them down. Imagine how better off they would be without me. And it's not a far step to keep going, those little steps going. They would be better off without me, actually, yeah, because, if I'm not here, then the definite way that I'm making them feel would be gone anymore, even though that's not how you're making them feel.
Just let me ask you, Nathan, I mean, that again, I follow your thought process there. How have you been able to move from that thought pattern to what you described to me earlier about reaching the point where you feel ready to move forward? And that's that is an about turn in the way your mind's working. I've got such admiration for you, because just making that shift, just turning the car around like you have.
Yeah.
How have you done that?
So one of the biggest things for me with this walk, which was why I was telling you about this analogy of me not walking on my own 2 feet, was, and this hit me again in the counselling session. I told my counsellor about the plans for this walk, so it was quite recent, a few months back. And I said to him, I did a mile. I'm remembering Sunday, the first mile that I ever walked barefoot was from where I lived to the cenotaph. A few of my friends who are military guys, I was like, will you walk with me? It's my first mile. The challenge is called Walk a Mile on my shoes. So I walked that mile, and I'm in shape. I can run a marathon. I can do a lot of things. I walked 1 mile with no shoes on, and my feet were so sore, and my hamstrings were killing me. And I was like, I mustn't be, with shoes on, I mustn't be walking right, because why are my hamstrings so sore? And I walked that first mile, so my feet were killing me. And then I went to the counselling session the next day, and I said, funnily enough, in life, I've went, thank you for carrying me. I need to walk on my own path now. And I've stepped on the ground for the first time. And of course, if you're walking for the first time, your feet are going to hurt. So I had this physical, this is weird, in this analogy we've been putting together in counselling, it's basically leading to me walking on my own 2 feet and taking my arms off the people who've been carrying me and helping me, and I'm saying thank you, but I'm never going to be able to, all 3 of us ain't fitting through that door. One person-sized door that I need to go through. I need to help myself go through that door, and then I can help other people. I can be a better person. But selfishly, I need to go through that door on my own. So thanks for helping me. I'm going to walk for the first time.
And it's not selfish.
But in a sense, you know, like it's that decision to put it above everything else in your life, everyone else. It was the decision that I need to do this to make me to be here, to live. So it was just a weird like feeling to think that my feet were killing me. And then I went, of course they're killing you.
Because you're on the first stage of the journey.
Yeah, of course they're killing you, because it's the first time you've used them since, you know, when did you use your own 2 feet?
I mean, I've got to say, your counsellor and your best mate sound like fantastic people.
They are, and it's, like I say, I can never explain or thank them in you know, there's no words that I could say that could show how grateful I am for these people in my life, who've always been there for me, and that's it. I genuinely used to think if I'd like upset me mate or upset too close, I keep referring to these too close people to me, if I had upset one of them, that they would not be my friend anymore or not be there for me anymore. And I used to feel like I can't live without them. And it shouldn't be the case that you can't live, like, yeah, you love these people, but you shouldn't ever feel like you shouldn't live anymore if they're not in your life, because your life is important.
There's always a way forward.
Yeah.
No matter how desperate a situation may seem, there is always a way forward. And the ability to keep moving and tackle difficult circumstances, again, it's what successful people do. And what I mean by success has got nothing to do with money. It's got nothing to do with careers or business. It's about leading a fulfilled, purposeful life. That's what success is.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope you don't mind me saying this, you're such an intelligent guy and you're such an eloquent person that I think your story can help others.
I hope it can, and I hope that I've said this, if one person, just one person out of hopefully many, many people that this challenge is going to reach, if I can, I don't even have to know that I've helped them, but if it can help one person, then I'll have made a change in this world, in a world where I thought I was completely insignificant, and in a world where I thought I didn't belong and I was better off not being here. You know, that'll be enough for me. And it's obviously going to be a hard thing to do. It's a long journey and I've, like I said, when I came up with the idea, I didn't realize all the things that needed to be done to actually do it. So it's been difficult logistically. It's been difficult, you know, financially. I've put everything that I've got into, like, I've had help, but, you know, I've done everything as best I can. I was going to sell my car the other day just to be able to, like, okay, but it's all worth it. Every single step that I've done so far has been worth what the outcome for me will be, and that's to find some peace within myself and to hopefully help just one other person. Like, that's.
And is that something you would be interested in doing as a vocation after the war? Because I mean, I know now you've gone to help people in terms of training them on MMA. Is that right, or is it jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, mainly. Yeah, a mixture of both at our gym. Yeah, so.
And if anyone's listening to this story and thinking, I'd like this guy to train me, should we put your gym's details at the bottom of the socials as well?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. I mean, most people will know that, like yourself, you train at a gym. They're great places for, like, to be part of something.
I love it.
You know, and I'd recommend that. I think, you know, getting involved in a gym, your closest gym to you, can be the life saving. It can change your life completely. And, you know, you don't have to be this UFC star.
There's an element of equality in there. I mean, obviously, in any gym, if you're in a scenario where you're training or there's classes or whatever it is, there will be different ages, there'll be different body shapes, there will be different levels of fitness. There'll probably be people with different goals.
Yeah.
But there is a level of equality in that you are all there for the same reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
And you share in that.
Yeah.
And it's a very positive goal to share. And I really feel that a sense of community.
Yeah.
I think particularly in boxing and martial arts gyms, because, you know, before I started training one myself, I would have thought, bloody, I'm not going there. everyone's just going to be snarling at each other, and all these real monsters of people, and but it just isn't like that. There's a lot of respect and support and positivity and few harsh words if you're not pulling your finger out when you're working out.
Yeah.
But I'm with you, man. It's important.
I can't remember who said it, but someone said, I don't even know if they said this exact what I'm going to say, but it's the only martial arts gyms are the only places in the world where you can walk into a gym and be on the same mat as Premier League players. That's what I'm going to
agree. Yeah.
Like, you couldn't walk up to Liverpool Football Club and go, can I have a kick around?
You certainly couldn't.
But I've walked into gyms in when I've travelled and stuff and been on the mat with the best people in the world, and they don't go, oh, you can't train with us.
Why are you here? Why are you near me?
Yeah, whether you're a white belt and he's a black belt, they will just be like, you're right.
Well, it's that equality, isn't it? It's that equality of commitment and of goals, and there's a real sharing there, which I get a real warmth from, and you clearly do as well.
Yeah, it is like like I say, you're part of a community, and we're social beings, aren't we? I never thought we was. I used to try to avoid people as much as possible, because I used to go into a room full of people and feel like I was still on my own, completely alone. Completely alone. Said that wrong. But,
no, you haven't. You've described it perfectly. No. But what?
So yeah, if we rewind that.
Yeah, what you mean is
what I'm trying to say is I used to go into a room full of people and feel completely alone. One of the things, this is why I wanted to rephrase that, because one of the things I've said and I've discovered about what I'm doing, this walk, is that every single step that I do, I will be on my own. I'm doing that step, but I'm not alone. And I think nowadays that being on your own and being alone are merged. People go, it's the same thing. It's not. I'm on my own physically. I'm doing each step by myself, but I've got masses of people who are supporting me, who are there with me, whether it's messaging me, people offering to come walk with me.
And also you're also with all of the people you will be helping.
Yeah.
So all the people that this fantastic journey you're going on, this record-breaking journey, will help.
Yeah.
And there'll be many, many of them. You're with them as well.
Yeah, and it's like, it's such a big thing for me that, like, the fact that to accept that.
Take your time, man. Take your time. Don't say sorry.
To accept that, like, not just the people who know me, but who care about me, but complete strangers, like, care for me, who don't even know me, who send me a message going, what you're doing is great and we support you. It gives you, like, it does give you faith in humanity, doesn't it? I know it's like a big thing to say, but coming from where I'm coming from, I used to hate the world. I used to hate the people in the world and think that it's just why, what's the point? But from what I can honestly say, and I've been through some bad things, there's no amount of bad, no amount of evil, no amount of negativity that will ever outweigh the good. Because the people in my life, where I'm at now, and what I've got now, if you could say to me, okay, we're going to make you go through all of it again, so you know what's coming, we're going to make you do it, have all things happen to you again, so you can keep what you've got now, let's do it. I'd do it straight away like that, because it's worth it. And that's what you don't see when you're in that, like, fog, that cloud of it's over you. And all you got to do is just get above the cloud, and then you'll see that it's grey down here, but it's sunny up here. And that's all you've got to do is with your mindset, move above the cloud, and it is worth it. There's no amount of pain, suffering that you could say that I'm going to experience now that wouldn't make me do it again.
Well, it's wonderful to hear you say that, and I do agree with you. I think there's a principle underlying here that if you keep moving in the right direction, there's no particular scenario which is permanent unless you want it to be.
Yeah, definitely.
And I really would reach out to anyone who's who's in a bad spot with that message that you've just articulated so well.
The slogan that I'm trying to, it's obviously a saying. The challenge is called "Walk a Mile in My Shoes," but what I keep trying to hashtag is one step at a time, and that's like everyone knows that saying, but it really is one step at a time. Like once and the first step is always going to be the hardest step, but once you take one step, take another, you'll eventually get there, you know. But it is important on what direction you're taking the step. For me, if I was to go outside now and walk, a step in front of me is insignificant, and it's just another step. Yeah. Most people would think of that. When I'm standing on a bridge, a step forward or step backwards is completely, a step, if it's not forward or back, but a step is very significant, isn't it?
Yes.
If I go that way, or if I go that way. So I think that you've just got to take it step by step and try to take the steps in the right direction, and it'll just snowball from there. Things getting easier, not harder. People think, it's going to be hard, and it's getting easier for me.
Well, that's so good to hear. I've got to let you go soon, but I want to finish off on the walk. But just one question. I mean, you've obviously in a situation now where only 6 months ago you were in a bad spot, to put it mildly. Mm-hmm. But all I'm seeing from you now is much more positivity. What's your? I hope you mind me asking. What's your personal situation? Do you live on your own? Do you have your own place?
Yeah, so I live with my partner, and we've got our house. We've got a car. Got a dog. I've got friends, and that's what's like scary about it. I told myself all my life I just need to get to the point where I've got those things and it'll be okay. And the moment I had all those things and stopped surviving was the moment I got hit. It was the moment that it really started to get worse. Because when you're not surviving, what are you doing? You're just there, and then it's like, well, I had to work to get a car, I had to work to get a house, I had to work to get all these things, and then it's like, yeah, I'm okay now. And that's when it comes for you, I think, more, because you're not in survival mode anymore.
It's fascinating. I mean, it's to share that experience, but the fact that you've been able to, to rechannel that survival instinct into helping people, as you will be both with this walk, but also, I mean, we can talk about this off mic, but you have got to share this story with as many people as possible. I mean, things that are shooting into my mind is book, film, documentary, looking to speak to people yourself about these things. I think it seems to me that it would be a natural course in your career to do that because of the number of people you'll be able to help, mate.
I hope so. And there's that saying, isn't it? It's okay to not be okay.
Yes.
I like that saying, but that's not okay. We need to sort this out. It's a massive, like I looked at the numbers for suicide, to mental health issues, and it was something like last year, one in four people in the UK suffered from a mental illness that last year. And I was looking at pandemic figures for COVID-19. It was something like a couple of million, whatever it was, of cases compared to, a quarter of the population, 66 million in the UK. So 22 million people a year are having mental health problems, and it was like 2.2 million people have got COVID. Not comparing the two together, but if that's a pandemic, what's this?
Absolutely.
What's 22 million people a year struggling with mental health for, with a 15-week waiting list, with no help when they really need it, with, there needs to be more. The charities are amazing. Mine's amazing. All the mental health charities are amazing, but they're so like, what they provide is compared to the NHS, which the NHS is amazing. Obviously, we're lucky to have it, but the fact that I can ring Mind or a number of other mental health charities and say, I'm really struggling, they'll have someone at your house that night, the next morning.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm not a great fan of the "it's okay to be okay," like you said, because it does suggest that people have to just accept that the way they feel is kind of the way it is.
But the way they feel and what's happened to them and the way they're being treated if you like, by like, or the services that they're able to access. That's not okay.
No, it's not. And when we see the NHS is wonderful, the doctors and nurses are wonderful, 100%. I'm not convinced that with 15-week waiting lists that the services that the NHS is providing is any good. The doctors and nurses are wonderful, and they're suffering from this as much as anyone. But it needs to be gotten a grip of, because it's just not sustainable to have that level of a crisis in mental well-being with so little resource to solve it.
Exactly, and like I say, I was very fortunate because if I'd have had that experience, and I imagine this has happened to people, I can't say because the people who've actually went, unfortunately aren't here anymore, and they've had the experience that I've had, and then the next day they went, I need to get help, and they've rang the doctor. They went 15 weeks, and that's made them go, you know what? People don't actually care. I've just tried to get help. No one cares. I've got no money. I can't afford a counsellor. You know what? Last night, I should have done that. Tonight, I am going to do it, because what? And that's sad to think that is happening. And, for me, I looked at a counsellor and went, okay, what's this much? Okay, I can pay for that. It's a bit much, but it's
but
fine.
Not everyone can they?
No, they can't. And there is some great projects that are happening in Liverpool. I've been to a couple recently, one where I met Speedo Mick, which was dead funny, because I was speaking to this guy. It's hilarious, I was speaking to this guy. Yeah, I'm doing this walk, I'm doing this, and he's like, oh yeah, it's going to be tough, that, and I was like, don't worry, mate. Like in my mind, I was like, yeah, I've got it. And then he walks off after this 20-minute conversation, and this guy next to me goes, do you know that's Speedo Mick? I was like, no, it's not.
But he does wear shoes.
He does, but
nothing else.
in terms of him having knowledge of walking.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, no, that's not him. And he was like, it is. And I was like, I had no idea, because you're not wearing your Speedos and your hat. No. But he's an amazing guy, and I got speaking to him, and that was at an opening day for, it's called the Inner Guru, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're doing like free courses. Not just them. There's that I've started to see that there's like free 10-week courses for like mental health. Where you can go and you can get access to this type of counselling and help when you've got no money. So it's definitely rising. There's definitely more out there than there was, but there needs to be so much more.
There does. I mean, there really does. 4th of May, is it?
4th of May, yeah. May the 4th be with you.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why it's on that day.
And, all I can do is, so in terms of your training, are you going everywhere barefoot?
90% of there's obviously there's places where it's just going to be not safe.
Yeah,
I wouldn't walk through town barefooted.
No.
But yeah, 90% of me, 95% of my life now, I am barefoot, just to get the condition as much as I can. And yeah, I was doing I was started off doing a marathon a week, every Saturday, and then I went up to doing 100-mile a week, and now I've tapered that down again. So I don't think any amount of training is going to prepare me for.
No, I mean it's going to be a real challenge, but listen, mate, we wish you the absolute best of luck with it. But I mean, above even wishing you that good luck, it's just been awesome, man, to share this experience with you, of just talking about this. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
My view that you need, if we can help you with this at all, we will.
Yeah.
In terms of, you need to be sharing this with others, because this solution, this series of solutions that you've found, and this way you've been able to shape your mindset and to be looking forward to the future, and you really should be. Yeah. I'm absolutely convinced of that. You've got a really good future ahead of you. Then I think lots of people will benefit from that. But best of luck. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast, and I've got no doubt we'll speak again.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
Good man. Cheers, Nathan.